Dad's silent revenge.
The champagne was still cold in my hand when my phone rang, shattering what should have been the most peaceful moment of my life. My son's voice dripped with the kind of entitlement that comes from never having worked a day for anything. 24 hours later, I was standing in my own foyer, watching a parade of strangers track sand across my hardwood floors like they owned the place. Let me back up and tell you how this mess started. I'm Howard Nelson, 58 years old, and 3 months ago I sold Nelson Marketing Solutions, the company I'd built from scratch over 30 years. The buyers paid $8 million cash. After taxes, I had enough to do exactly what I wanted: buy my dream beach house and disappear from the corporate rat race forever. The house was everything I'd fantasized about during those brutal 60-hour work weeks. 6,000 square feet of weathered cedar and glass perched on the dunes of the Outer Banks, with panoramic ocean views and enough space to host my whole family for the holidays I'd been too busy to enjoy for decades. My wife Sarah would have loved it, but she passed 3 years ago from a heart attack. This house was my way of starting over. I'd been there exactly 8 hours when Timothy called. "No, Tom, congratulations on your retirement, Dad, Tom," or "Tom, the house looks amazing." Tom, just straight to business. "Tom, Dad, we need you to move to the guest room upstairs. Jennifer's entire family is flying in tomorrow for a 2-week vacation. Her parents, her sister's family, her brother and his girlfriend. That's 11 people total." Tom, I actually laughed. "Tom, Timothy, son, this is my house. If you want a vacation here, we can work out some dates." Tom, no, you don't understand. We already booked their flights. They're expecting to stay in the master suite and the main bedrooms. The guest room has a perfectly good ocean view. You'll be fine up there. Tom, the casual assumption that I'd just comply left me speechless. This was the same son I'd put through business school, whose failed restaurant I'd bailed out twice, whose mortgage I'd helped with when his graphic design company nearly folded. "Tom, Timothy, I bought this house to relax and enjoy my retirement. I'm not running a hotel for Jennifer's family." Tim, his voice turned cold in a way that reminded me uncomfortably of his mother during her worst moods. "Tom, look, Dad, you've got this huge house all to yourself. It's selfish. And if you don't want to be reasonable about sharing it, well, I heard there's a very nice assisted living facility just down the coastal highway." Tom, the threat hung in the air like smoke from a house fire. My 35-year-old son was essentially telling me to accommodate his in-laws or face abandonment. "Tom, I see," Tom, I said quietly. "Tom, and what if I refuse?" Tom, then I guess we'll have to reconsider how much help you actually need at your age. Living alone in such a big house, managing all that space, maybe it's too much responsibility for someone pushing 60. Tom, after I hung up, I sat on my new deck, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of amber and gold. The beauty should have been healing, but all I could think about was the satisfied smugness in Timothy's voice. He thought he'd cornered me, thought I was just another helpless old man who'd caved to emotional blackmail. What Timothy didn't know, what I'd learned in 30 years of business, was that the best victories come from letting your opponent think they've already won. The next morning I started preparing for their arrival, but not in the way they expected. I woke up to the sound of car doors slamming and voices carrying across the morning air. Apparently, Jennifer's family had decided to arrive at 7 a.m. without warning, because why would they consider that the homeowner might want advance notice? From my upstairs window, I watched a caravan of rental cars disgorge what looked like a small army. Jennifer directed traffic like a general deploying troops, pointing toward different entrances and barking orders about luggage distribution. Her parents emerged from the first car, both wearing those aggressively casual vacation outfits that screamed, "Tom, we're here to be served." What struck me most was how comfortable they all seemed. No hesitation, no glances toward the house, wondering if they should knock first. They moved like people who'd been told this was their space now. I slipped on my robe and headed downstairs, curious to see how they'd handle actually encountering the homeowner. Tom, Jennifer, startled when she saw me, then quickly recovered. "Tom, Howard, Timothy said you'd moved upstairs already. Good. The master suite gets the best morning light, and Mom has arthritis, so she really needs the ground floor bedroom." Tom, her parents, swept past me without introduction, wheeling their suitcases toward my bedroom like they were checking into a resort. Jennifer's mother, Patricia, had silver hair pulled back in an expensive headband and wore the kind of casual linen that costs more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Her husband, Carl, barely acknowledged my existence as he surveyed my living room with the critical eye of someone evaluating a hotel's amenities. Jennifer's sister, Nancy, and her husband corralled their 2 teenagers toward the guest bedrooms on the 2nd floor, while brother Keith and his girlfriend claimed the den with the pull-out sofa. The teenagers looked embarrassed by the whole situation, which gave me some hope for the younger generation. "Tom, coffee's in the kitchen," Tom, I said mildly. "Tom, help yourselves." "Tomo, we brought our own supplies." Tom, Jennifer chirped. opening my pantry and beginning to rearrange my carefully organized shelves. Tom, mom's on a special diet and the kids are picky eaters. We'll just need you to clear out some refrigerator space. I watched her pile my groceries into a cardboard box like she was cleaning out an employee's desk. She moved with the efficiency of someone who'd clearly done this before, probably to other relatives who'd been too polite to object. Tom, where would you like me to put these? Tom, I asked, holding up my displaced food. Tom, the garage refrigerator should be fine. Timothy said you had one out there. Of course, Timothy had given them a complete inventory of my property. I wondered what else he'd shared during their planning sessions. By noon, my house had been completely transformed. Pool toys littered the deck, wet towels draped over my furniture, and the kitchen looked like a hurricane had hit it. Patricia held court at my dining table, complaining loudly about the water pressure in her shower while Carl critiqued my cable channel selection. He'd found my remote and was flipping through channels with the authority of someone who'd paid the cable bill. Tom, Howard, Patricia called out without looking up from her phone. Tom, we're going to need the Wi-Fi password. And do you have any of those little drink umbrellas? The kids are making tropical smoothies. Tim Keith had discovered my fishing gear in the garage and was examining my rods like he was appraising them for sale. His girlfriend lounged by the pool in a bikini that cost more than my monthly electric bill, taking selfies against the backdrop of my ocean view. Nancy's teenagers had claimed the upstairs game room, and the sound of video games echoed through the house. The casual expectation that I'd serve as their personal concierge was breathtaking, but I just smiled and provided the password, then excused myself to the garage where I spent the afternoon making phone calls that would change everything. The first call was to my attorney, Dennis Rodriguez, who'd handled the house purchase. Tom, Dennis, I need you to pull the deed on the Outer Banks property. Specifically, I need to confirm the exact legal ownership structure. Tom, Howard, is everything all right? You sound stressed. Tom, let's just say I'm having some unexpected family visitors, and I want to make sure my legal position is crystal clear. Tom, Dennis had been my lawyer for 15 years. He knew me well enough to read between the lines. Tom will have those documents ready by tomorrow morning. Anything else? Tom, the second call was to my accountant, who'd structured the house purchase for optimal tax benefits. Tom, Ronald, remember how we set up the beach house purchase? Walk me through the ownership details again. Tom, it's held in your personal name. Howard. No trust, no LLC, just straight individual ownership. Why do you ask? Tom, just want to make sure I understand my options if someone tries to claim they have rights to the property. Tom, the third call was to Gerald Coleman, a local private investigator I'd used during some messy corporate acquisitions. Tom, Gerald, I need a background check run on some house guests. Full financial workup, employment history, social media deep dive. Yes, I'll pay your rush fee. Tom, how deep are we talking, Howard? Tommy, want to know if they've pulled this stunt before, what their financial situation really looks like, and whether there are any legal issues I should be aware of. These people are treating my home like they own it, and I have a feeling this isn't their first rodeo. Tom, give me 48 hours. Tom, by dinner time, while Jennifer's clan devoured steaks they'd helped themselves to from my freezer, I had started building my case, but I wasn't ready to play my cards yet. Better to let them get truly comfortable first. That evening I watched from the deck as they settled into their routine. Patricia had taken over my master bathroom for what appeared to be an elaborate skincare regimen. Carl was in my home office, using my computer and printer like it was his personal workspace. Timothy called twice to check on the Tom family accommodation, and seemed pleased that everything was going according to plan. Tom, this is perfect, Dad. Tom, he said during his second call. Tom, Jennifer's family loves the house. They're already talking about making this an annual tradition. Tom, an annual tradition. That was when I realized this wasn't just about one vacation. They were testing the waters, seeing how far they could push me. If I caved now, this would become the new normal. That night, as I lay in the small guest room listening to 11 people enjoy my house below me, I smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring the first surprise. I woke up to find my coffee maker occupied by a line of Jennifer's relatives treating my kitchen like a hotel breakfast buffet. Patricia had taken over my entire counter space to prepare what appeared to be a gluten-free, dairy-free feast for her various dietary restrictions. Keith's girlfriend was loudly complaining about the lack of almond milk, while Nancy's kids raided my pantry for anything with sugar. Howard, Patricia said without looking up from her elaborate breakfast preparation. Tom, we're going to need you to run to the store. Keith's girlfriend is lactose intolerant, and Nancy's youngest is allergic to literally everything. I made a list. She handed me a 3-page shopping list written in the demanding script of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Items like Tom organic coconut milk, the expensive kind. Not that watery stuff, Tom. And Tom gluten-free bread that doesn't taste like cardboard. Good luck. Tom were highlighted in different colors according to urgency. At the bottom, she'd added, Tom, maybe pick up some wine for tonight. Something nice, not the cheap stuff. Tom, the woman, was literally asking me to buy alcohol for the people who'd invaded my home. But instead of arguing, I took the list and headed for town. What they didn't know was that I had my own errands to run. My first stop was the hardware store, where I purchased several items that would prove useful later, primarily a high-quality security camera system with audio recording capabilities. The clerk, a friendly guy named Dave, helped me select a system that could be easily installed and would provide crystal clear video and audio evidence of anything happening in my common areas. Tom, planning to keep an eye on the house while you're away? Tom, Dave asked. Tom, something like that. I want to make sure I know exactly what's happening under my own roof. Tom, next, I visited the local phone company to discuss some changes to my service plan that would give me detailed call logs and enhanced recording capabilities. Technology had come a long way since I'd been in business, and I intended to use every advantage available. Then a quick trip to my bank, where I had a fascinating conversation with the manager about account security features and transaction monitoring. If anyone tried to make unauthorized charges or access my accounts, I'd know about it immediately. By the time I returned with their groceries, $347 worth of specialty items for people who'd never asked permission to stay in my house, Jennifer's crew had made themselves even more at home. Keith had rearranged my living room furniture to optimize TV viewing, while Nancy's kids had discovered my art supplies and were creating Tom masterpieces Tom on my walls. I watched one of them use my expensive brushes to paint what appeared to be a stick figure family on the drywall. Tom, oh good, you're back, Tom, Jennifer said, not bothering to help with the bags. Tom, we're planning a big barbecue tomorrow night. About 30 people, Timothy's friends. Some locals we've met, a few business contacts. You'll need to get steaks, hamburgers, hot dogs, all the sides. I sent you a text with the details. Tom, I checked my phone. The text was essentially a catering order for a full barbecue spread, complete with specific brands and quantities. At the bottom, she'd added, Tom, make sure you get enough beer and wine. Tommy said his business partners are coming, so we want to make a good impression. Tom, 30 people in my house without my permission. Tom, that sounds like quite a party. Tom, I said evenly. Tom, it's going to be amazing. We're really going to put this place on the map. Timothy said you never entertained much, so it's probably good to get some real use out of this kitchen. Tom, I noticed she'd already started moving my personal items out of the common areas. Family photos, my books, even my father's military service medals had been temporarily relocated to make room for their vacation aesthetic. They'd replaced my carefully curated artwork with beach-themed decorations they must have picked up at a local gift shop. That evening, while they planned their party from my deck chairs, I made another round of phone calls from the garage, this time to some old business contacts who owed me favors. Tom, Arthur, it's Howard Nelson. Yes, I know I'm retired, but I need a small favor. How quickly can your catering company handle a last-minute event? 30 people tomorrow night. Money's no object, but there's a catch. Tom, Arthur Brooks, had catered several of my corporate events over the years. We'd developed a good working relationship, and he knew I always paid my bills on time. Tom, what kind of catch are we talking about? Howard? Tom, Tommy, need you to bill the event to someone else initially, then transfer the charges later. It's complicated, but I'll explain when you get here. Can you do premium service? Prime rib, lobster tails, champagne service. Tom, for 30 people. That's going to run about $15,000. Tom, perfect. Spare no expense. Tom, the next morning brought a flurry of activity as Jennifer's family prepared for their grand party. They'd invited half the beach community, promising premium steaks and top-shelf liquor in my house. Patricia spent the morning criticizing my kitchen organization while simultaneously taking over every surface for party prep. She'd apparently decided my spice rack needed reorganizing and was labeling everything with her own system. Carl had claimed my garage as his personal workshop and was setting up chairs and tables without asking permission. Keith was testing my sound system, playing music loud enough that neighbors were starting to look over their fences with annoyed expressions. Around noon, I heard Timothy's voice from the driveway and went to the window. He'd arrived with even more guests, college friends who'd apparently been promised a weekend at the family beach house. The casual way he distributed my spare keys to people I'd never met was particularly impressive. I counted at least 6 strangers now walking through my house like they owned it. Tom, Dad, Tom. He called out when he saw me. Tom, there you are. Hope you're ready for a real party. We've got some important people coming tonight. Business networking. You know, this house is perfect for making connections. Tom, important people in my house for Timothy's networking opportunities. The irony was delicious. I watched him give a tour to 3 men in expensive polo shirts, describing the house's features and location advantages like he was showing off his own property. Around 3 p.m., I excused myself to run errands, and drove to Dennis Rodriguez's office to pick up the documents I'd requested. The property deed was crystal clear. The house was titled solely in my name, with no other parties having any legal claim to the property. Dennis had also prepared a comprehensive packet outlining my rights as a property owner and the legal definitions of trespassing and unauthorized occupancy. Tom Howard, whatever's going on, you have complete legal authority over who stays in your house and for how long, Tom Dennis assured me. Tom, no one can force you to accommodate guests you don't want. Tom, what about family members? Do they have any special rights? Tom, adult children have zero legal claim to their parents' property unless there's been a formal transfer of ownership. Your son has no more right to your house than a complete stranger would him. I also stopped by Gerald Coleman's office to check on the background investigation. What he'd found was illuminating. Tom, your son and his wife are in deeper financial trouble than I expected, Tom Gerald reported. Tom 3 months behind on rent, maxed out credit cards, and get this, they've been researching vacation rental properties in your area for the past 6 months. Looks like they've been planning this for a while. Tom, planning what? Exactly, Tom, based on their search history and some social media posts, I think they've been looking for a way to solve their housing problems. There are several posts about family compounds and multi-generational living arrangements. My guess is this vacation is a test run for something more permanent. Tom, the pieces were falling into place. This wasn't just about one vacation. They were evaluating my house as a potential solution to their financial problems. Around 5 p.m., I excused myself to get ready for the evening. After all, I wouldn't want to miss their big party. What they didn't know was that I'd prepared a few surprises of my own. By 6 p.m., cars lined my driveway like a luxury dealership showcase. Mercedes, BMWs, and Range Rovers belonging to the important people Timothy had invited to network at his father's expense. I watched from my upstairs window as strangers wandered through my property, helped themselves to drinks from my bar, and settled into my furniture like they owned it. Timothy had set up a full bar on my deck, complete with premium liquor that I definitely hadn't purchased. Jennifer was playing hostess with impressive confidence, introducing herself as part of the family that owned the beach house. Keith was grilling steaks on my expensive outdoor kitchen while Carl regaled anyone who'd listen with stories about Tom the family property. Tom, the final insult came when I saw Timothy giving someone a tour of the house, describing it as Tom the family estate, Tom, and casually mentioning that he was handling all the management decisions now that I was transitioning into a more relaxed role. At 58, the party was in full swing when I made my entrance. Timothy held court on the deck, regaling his audience with stories about acquiring the beach house and his plans for maximizing the property's potential. Jennifer flitted between groups, playing hostess with impressive confidence for someone who'd never paid a dime toward the mortgage. Tom Howard, Tom Patricia, spotted me first, her voice carrying that particular tone reserved for inconvenient elderly relatives. Tom, there you are, dear. Could you check on the appetizers? I think they're running lodum. Instead, I walked to the center of the deck and raised my voice just enough to catch everyone's attention. Tom, excuse me, everyone, if I could have just a moment. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate with us tonight. It's wonderful to see so many new faces enjoying this beautiful property. Tom Timothy beamed, clearly pleased that his father was finally embracing his role as gracious host to his networking event. Tom, before we continue, Tom, I said, pulling out my phone. Tommy, have a few quick announcements. Tom, that's when the catering truck pulled into my driveway. Not the small, discreet catering company you might expect for a beach barbecue. This was Arthur Brooks's premium event services, complete with uniformed staff, a full mobile kitchen, and enough equipment to service a corporate gala. Tom, what's that? Tom, Jennifer asked, her hostess smile faltering slightly. Tomo, that's dinner, Tom, I said cheerfully. Tommy thought since we were having such a large party, we should do it right. Prime rib, lobster tails, champagne service, the works. Tom Timothy's expression shifted from pleased to confused to worried in the span of 10 seconds. Premium catering for 30 people wasn't cheap, and he was apparently doing math in his head. Tom, Dad, we already bought steaks. Tomo, don't worry about those. We'll save them for another time. Tom, I turned to address the crowd again. Tom, the catering staff will be setting up shortly, so if everyone could just give them some space to work. Tom, Arthur himself approached clipboard in hand, wearing the kind of satisfied expression that comes from being paid double his usual rate for a rush job. Tom, Mr. Nelson, where would you like the champagne station? Tom, the champagne station? Tom Timothy's voice cracked slightly. Tom, right by the pool, Arthur. And make sure everyone gets the good stuff. Dom Perignon, not the house champagne. Tom, within 30 minutes. What had been a casual cookout became a high-end dinner party with a price tag of $15,000. The guests were impressed. Timothy looked increasingly panicked, and I was having the time of my life. Tom, Dad, Tom Timothy pulled me aside, his networking smile replaced by panic. Tom, what's this going to cost? Tom, I smiled sweetly. Tom, don't worry, son. It's all taken care of. Tom, what I didn't tell him was exactly how it was being taken care of. That revelation would come later. The morning after the party brought a reckoning that was almost worth the champagne hangover. I found Timothy and Jennifer huddled over their phones at my dining table, frantically calling credit card companies and checking bank balances while surrounded by the remnants of last night's extravaganza. Tom, $15,000. Tom, Jennifer whispered, staring at the invoice like it might spontaneously combust. Timothy was on his third phone call to his bank, trying to explain why he needed his credit limit raised by exactly $15,000. The conversations weren't going well. Tom, good morning. Tom, I said brightly, pouring myself coffee from my reclaimed kitchen. Tom, how's everyone feeling after the big party? Tom, Dad, we need to talk about that catering build. Tomo, wasn't it wonderful? Everyone raved about the lobster. Arthur really outdid himself. Tom, we can't afford $15,000 for one dinner party. Tom, I tilted my head thoughtfully. Tom, that's strange. I was under the impression you were handling all the management decisions for this property now. At least that's what you told all those nice people last night. Tom, the color drained from his face as the implication sank in. If he'd publicly claimed management authority over the house, then logically, he'd be responsible for its expenses as well. My phone rang at exactly that moment. I'd timed this perfectly. Tom, Howard Nelson, this is Helen Martinez from Coastal Properties Real Estate. I have some questions about the beach house listing. Tom, I put the call on speaker, curious to see how far Timothy had gone. Tom, I'm sorry, miss. Martinez, but I haven't listed any property for sale. Tomo, that's odd. We received an inquiry yesterday from a Timothy Nelson claiming to represent the owner for a potential sale. He provided detailed information about the property and mentioned he was authorized to handle all real estate decisions. Tom, the silence that followed was so complete I could hear the ocean waves through the open windows. Timothy's face had gone from worried to pure panic, while Jennifer stared at him like he'd suddenly sprouted a second head. Tommy C. Toom, I said calmly. Tom, well, Mr. Nelson is not authorized to represent me in any real estate matters. If someone has been providing information about my property without permission, that's quite concerning. Should I file a report with the local authorities? Impersonating a property owner is a serious matter. Timothy was making frantic Tom gestures, but I pretended not to notice. Tom, let me think about that and get back to you, Ms. Martinez. Thank you for calling, Tim. After I hung up, the silence stretched until Patricia, oblivious to the tension, piped up again. Tom, Howard, about those fresh towels. Tom, get out. Tom, the words came out quiet, but clear as crystal. Tom, excuse me. Tom, get out. All of you. Pack your things and leave my house. Timothy found his voice. Tom, Dad, you can't be serious. We're family. Family doesn't impersonate each other to real estate agents. Family doesn't throw $15,000 parties on someone else's credit. And family certainly doesn't threaten assisted living when they don't get their way. Tom, I walked to the front door and held it open. Tom, you have 2 hours to collect your belongings and leave. If you're not gone by then, I'll be calling both the police and Ms. Martinez back to file those reports. What followed was exactly what you'd expect. A chaotic scramble of accusations, blame shifting, and desperate negotiations. But 2 hours later, my house was finally quiet again. 6 months later, I was sitting on my deck watching the Henderson family enjoy their peaceful vacation. That's right, I'd turned my beach house into a profitable rental property. $8,000 for 2 weeks booked solid through the summer season. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose rather than the one you're born with. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone else's worst impulses. Even when that someone is your own child, especially when that someone is your own child. Sometimes protecting what you've earned means disappointing the people who think they're entitled to it. And that's not cruelty, that's wisdom. The difference between love and exploitation is respect for boundaries. Real family builds you up, fake family tears you down to build themselves up.